Good morning, everyone. I hope you're well. Hopefully, you can all hear me and hopefully, you can see my screen. If you could just, one of you or a couple of you could just put in the chat bar that you can hear me okay and can see my screen, that would be great. And then we can make a start. Okay. Let's see if I can do something about that. Helen, how's it appearing on your screen? Is it full screen on your screen? Super. So it might just be something in your settings, Karen. Put it bigger. The other solution is obviously you'll be getting a copy of this presentation and you'll be getting a copy of this recording as well. So if you can't quite make up the stuff on the slides, then that we can resort to that if you can't figure that out. The other thing is I'm not going to be going through kind of every slide bullet point by bullet point. I will be just talking mainly around the slides so that you can look at them and just listen to me. That will be great. Not as many people on as normal on these webinars, so there's only a few of you on, so it'd be nice if I can just find out a little bit more about you. So if you could just kind of put in the chat where you are, whether you're trading as a business or whether you're sort of pre-start thinking about it, any other information you think will be important, and then hopefully, because there's only a small group here, I can maybe tailor some of my comments to you as individuals. So if you can just do that for me, then I will make a start in 30 seconds or so. I'll let you do that while I talk a little bit about Wenta. I'm not sure whether the people on the call or those of you watching the recording later on know anything about Wenta. Some of you may have engaged with us before with our webinars, but I'll just give you a quick 30-second overview of who we are and what we do. So first of all, we are a charity, so we are not-for-profit social enterprise, and we have been in operation for 40 years. We are based in Hertfordshire in the UK. And we provide help and support to a vast range of small and medium-sized businesses up and down the country and also overseas. So at the moment on our books, we have somewhere in the region of 16,000 small businesses that we help either on a regular basis or on an occasional basis, or they watch our webinars. So quite a big size. We're a charity, so that everything we do here is not done for profit. We're doing it to try and help people, and we tap into a range of local government grants to help us do that. But our main income comes from the fact that we own 4 buildings in Hertfordshire, and we rent them out to small businesses. So people that are looking for just maybe one desk to get started, or medium-sized businesses that may be looking for space for 20 or 30 people. So the revenue from that, what it allows us to do is we plug that revenue back into the business advice part of the charity, and we have a team of 10 people here, a mix of business advisors and what we call triage advisors, who are here to try and help you. So if at any point, I'll share my contact details at the end of this presentation. If you require any one-to-one advice on your business, then as I say, we have a team of people here, which I'm one, who can work with you on a one-to-one basis to deal with any problems with your business, to talk about maybe marketing, business planning, the financial side of your business. And every single interaction with us is free. There is no catch. It is free advice. And the team are made up here of people who have had experience in business. So we're not a theoretical based company. We employ people that have worked in corporate life and hopefully know a little bit about what they're talking about. My background, I spent nearly 25 years in corporate life, worked in a couple of different sectors, but focused on the travel industry. So I started off there working for a company called Eurostar, which some of you may have been on and experienced. Then spent a time in the early 2000s at a company called lastminute.com, when the whole e-commerce boom was just starting, and we were making things up as we went along. I then went on to be managing director of a couple of different companies, including Voyage Privé, which is a five-star flash site holiday provider, and was also the managing director of Teletext Holidays, which some of you may remember, depending on your age. During that time and after that time, I've had two spells of running my own business, so I share the pain and frustrations, but also the freedom that running your own business can bring. And then for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been working with people like you, so people that either are planning to start a business or are running a business, and offering them advice across a whole range of different subjects. So hopefully either myself or one of my colleagues may be able to help you if you have any questions in the future. Today's presentation is going to focus on pricing. The reason why we put this presentation together is largely driven by a lot of new businesses who get their prices wrong. Generally, in my experience, most small businesses get their prices wrong in the negative, so they are too cheap. That can be based on a number of different reasons. Either you've not researched the market correctly, you've not thought about how you're different from the competition, or often we find a lot of people that we deal with are suffering from some form, or maybe a mild form, of what they call imposter syndrome, where you sometimes find it difficult to attach value to what you offer because you doubt your credentials or doubt your experience. And it's certainly a live issue for the majority of business owners I work with, where you question yourself and have doubts about it. So the presentation today is going to focus on a few different things in terms of what you're going to get out of it. So hopefully what I'm going to do is share some of my knowledge and give you some understanding of different approaches to pricing. What are the factors that go into it? Look at, depending on your business, which ones that you are most aligned to, whether you are selling a product or if you are selling a service. Sorry, Karen, I've just seen your thing. Of course you can ask a question. Yeah, just put a question in the chat and I'll try and answer it. I have the chat box open, so I'll try and answer it as I go along. If it's something that you don't want to ask on the group, then I will give you my email address and you can contact me afterwards. We will also look at discounting. So again, one of the common mistakes that new businesses make, they go straight into a market and rather than trying to be clever with their marketing and their pricing, they just go on discounting. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the benefits of that, but also about some of the negative sides of that, and hopefully look at some of the kind of language, some of the theories and concepts around pricing, which will hopefully help you to make a decision that either your pricing at the moment is correct or needs to be adjusted, or how for you to figure out, God, I can't speak, how you can figure out, yeah, how to set your prices for your new business if you have not started trading yet. Yeah. Question from Karen: what happens if where your business is and you know the town and other businesses are expensive, but you don't want to alienate customers? So what are you saying? Are you saying that you want to be cheaper than the rest, or are you saying that I'm not quite 100% clear on what you're asking, but maybe you can drop me an email after the webinar. We can get some bit more detail around that, Karen, if that kind of works for you. Cool. So that's the learning objectives. That's what we hopefully need to get across the next 40-45 minutes or so. In terms of what we're going to cover in a little bit more detail, so the content of this webinar today, so we're going to talk about early on the key considerations before you jump into thinking about your pricing and thinking about your business. We're going to talk about ways in which pricing can help to increase your sales revenues. We're then going to break down into the different types of pricing models that you may consider. There are 5 or so different types of pricing models. We're going to focus on 2 of those, which is one based around if you're offering a service and you're looking at providing your service based on an hourly rate, so either a straightforward hourly rate or a package of hourly rates that you're going to be offering, or if you are looking at product based, so you're selling a product, where we're going to look at the cost of that product to manufacture, to produce, to get in this country, if that's relevant, and how you then approach the pricing to make sure that you get a decent price. And part of that discussion is going to be looking at markup versus margin. So again, an area where I find a lot of my customers get confused in terms of what's the difference between a markup and a margin. So we'll explore that. And then we'll talk a little bit about discounting and the impact that can have on your business. Okay, let's move on. Let's start talking about it. So when we're thinking about a pricing strategy, there need to be kind of several key considerations that we need to think about. We can't just jump in, do a bit of market research and decide to set our products and our prices in line with everyone else. If we are doing something different, if the market is doing something different, then we have to look at our advantages, our product, what it can do. And I think, as I say to most people I speak to, I think the key thing that you need to be thinking of in order to set your prices and to be running your business efficiently day to day is that as a business owner, you must be 100% clear on the problem you are solving. Yeah, because we can only exist in business and be successful in business if we are solving a problem. Yeah. So as Wenta, we're solving the problem to offer people affordable office space. We're also solving the problem that people want to start their business and maybe don't know what they need to do. We're also solving the problem from existing business owners who maybe have lost their way or they want to grow their business. And because they are so involved in their business day to day, they can't see the wood for the trees and actually need someone external to give them some advice. So if you have this business idea already, I don't think all of you put down whether you are pre-start or existing, but whether you are at the start of your journey or you're somewhere along the route of your journey, every day you must be reminding yourself of the problems you are solving for your customers. Some of you may just have one problem. If you're lucky, you may have 5, 6, 7, 8 different problems you are solving. And that needs to be a key consideration when you're setting your pricing, because you need to understand the worth of what you're doing to that potential customer. So it's not just about what other people are charging, it's about what your worth is and also how you're solving that problem and what pain that takes away from your customer. Price cannot be considered on its own. Price is a consideration of the entire marketing piece. So if you are already marketing your business, then great. Hopefully you're taking the approach and hopefully you've heard of what I'm about to say next, because it is a key consideration not only for price, but also for how you market your business and showcase what you can do. So the thing we look at first of all in terms of considerations is something called the 5 Ps of marketing. If any of you are aware of it, you may also be aware of the 7 Ps of marketing. So that's just the same principle, just a little bit more detail. So when we look at the 5 key principles of marketing, we need to think about what we're doing, think about what we're offering our customer, because that will help us to get to often the last part of our planning, which is how much are we going to charge for our service or charge for our product. So the 5 the 5 Ps of marketing are product, promotion, place, people, and lastly, which we'll cover today, price. Yeah. So in each of these different areas, there are considerations that you need to think about and things that you need to do some kind of brain work on and sit down and brainstorm and put things down on paper. So the product element of this is, what is it you're selling? So even if it is a service, for the piece of marketing, it's all under product. Yeah. What is your product? Why is it different to the competition? Not a fan particularly of the phrase USP. Yeah, because I think people spend too long trying to search for a USP, which is a unique selling point. I think in some areas it's possible to attain, but generally the things we're doing, other people have done. We're just going to do it different. We're going to do it better. So it's thinking about the product. What problem is it solving? How is it helping your customers? And is it easing any of their pain? And that pain can be very, very minuscule pain, as in I need to order something off Amazon and I need it delivered tomorrow. So if you're Amazon Prime members, part of the problem they're solving is that we forget about things, we leave things to the last minute, and we make a decision to buy something and we need it the next day. That's the key problem that they are solving in that context. The promotion is about how you kind of push, promote, showcase your product or services to your potential customers. So what it looks like, what packaging it comes in, how you deliver it, what your website is like, all of these different elements that are going to try and convince your customer to part with their hard-earned cash and either buy a product or use your services. Place is traditionally, because these 5 P's of marketing have been around for a long, long time. So place used to be where you sell your product out of. Yeah. So that would often be a storefront or a shop. Now the place covers a whole realm of different areas. So not only if you are considering selling out of a shop or out of a unit, but the place is also your website. It's also third-party websites that you may be using. So you may be using eBay, Etsy, Amazon, not on the high street, a whole different realm of third-party companies that will help you to promote your product in exchange for something that they're going to get, whether it's a different, whether it's commissions, whether it's some kind of add-on that's going to be of benefit for you. So you need to consider what your product is, what it does, what problem it solves, and why it's different. You need to consider how that product is going to look, how it's going to be promoted, what you're going to do that's different there as well. You're going to have to then look at your distribution and what your website's doing, what other third parties are doing to promote your product. And then also you need to consider the people that are going to sit behind your business. So for the people, for most of you, the people is going to be you. Most of the people I deal with are owner-managed businesses or planning to be owner-managed businesses. So you need to consider why your background, your expertise, your skill set is important for your business and important, therefore, for your customer when they see it. I work with so many people who are driven, so driven to start their own business or grow their business because it's come from some point of their life experience. So whether they've suffered something themselves, someone close to them has suffered from something, that often drives people to start a business and help other people and change. So if that is your situation, then when you're thinking about your marketing and equally then thinking about your price, you need to think about who you are, what skills you have, and what value you think other people will put on that experience, those qualifications, that story. So be very prepared if you are in that type of business to put yourself front and center, which can be a bit scary, can be feel a bit cheesy at times or a bit egotistical. But if you are one of those people that is driven and you are the cornerstone of that business, then use that in your marketing, use that on your website to engage your customers and to try and get your customers to do something and engage with you and contact you. So we can't just look at price on its own. We can't just look at price and go, let's just price ourselves the same as what everyone else is doing, because if there is a point of difference or points of difference there, then that's going to add more value or potentially detract more value away from what you're offering to the customer. So if you're offering a better product, if your promotion on what the product looks like or the service looks like is better than the competition, if how you're promoting it is more expensive and you believe that the people behind your business are more experienced, more credible, more relatable, more qualified, any one or all of those factors, then that to me would lead to a discussion around the price where actually you would be charging a premium in the marketplace because you feel as though you've got a lot more to offer. The problem that a lot of people do, from my experience, is that they don't think about these other 4 things and they just look at who is in the marketplace. And if someone in the marketplace, competitors, if everyone there is charging £50, then they think, right, either I'll charge £50 or I'll charge £45 because I believe if I do it cheaper, I will get more customers. More on that towards the end of this presentation, because sometimes that can work, but it doesn't exist without its own dangers and pitfalls. So think about price in terms of your whole marketing approach. If you're struggling with marketing or haven't thought about marketing yet, then we have a range of webinars that cover off the basics of marketing, as well as some of the more detailed explanation of how to use certain channels. Or I will be happily able to talk you through my approach to marketing, which is basically targeted marketing, which has 5 key steps, which I can talk you through and send you information of. Price then can often be the last part of the conversation once you've figured out the answer to the other four of these 5 Ps. I hope that makes sense. So what you need to do when talking about your prices and base your prices, what I'm going to say now is the things you need to base your pricing strategy on, and also some of the things that you don't want to base your pricing strategy on. So let's just go through these one by one. Yeah. So the first thing you need to base your pricing strategy on is the value of your product or service to your customers, and based on the problem that you are solving. So if you're in a situation where you are one of few people able to solve that customer's problems, then obviously you can charge a higher price. If you are one of many people and there is no point of difference in terms of what you do, then you're going to price at the market rate or cheaper, because you're going to retain people based on the value they perceive your services are. And that's a really important thing to be conscious of, about thinking about what value you attach to your product or services, and not just the price you're attaching to it. Yeah. You need to look at how your price compares with your competitors' products and services as well. So think about what they're doing, think about why you can be different. Yeah. And just consider the different market forces, consider the different factors that may come into play when customers are making their decisions. You know, that kind of then looks at different types of products and services, because some things are more serious, more impactful than others. So with those decisions, it's not just based on how much you're going to pay for something, it's actually looking at the end output and the end result if someone has a serious problem that they need you to solve. So think about the value element of your business, not just a pricing element. Also, if you haven't already, then I think it's well worth reading up on how more information on how customers behave. So if you look at your typical target market, then there are behavioral patterns within those people which can help you when setting your pricing strategy again. So there are a number of different types of buying behavior. And as you will probably appreciate already, for your actions as a past customer, but also when you're thinking about your new business, sometimes customers do strange things. Sometimes customers have behavior that we don't explain and don't understand why they do certain things. I'll give you an example of that. When I used to work for an e-commerce website, people used to put a lot of things in baskets. So they would go through on different products and put things in baskets. And that was a real frustration for me, because I couldn't understand why potential customers were coming to my business, yeah, and they weren't taking the purchase through from the first stage to the second stage. So they were looking at the products that I was trying to sell. They were obviously interested in them because they were putting them in their basket, but what they weren't doing is then actually buying those products. So there was a conversion issue from putting stuff in baskets to actually buying those products, and for them me receiving the revenue. So when I looked at customer behavior, we looked into this and said, because we used to go along and offer them all sorts of discounts. So if they put something in their basket and didn't buy it for, say, 12 hours, we would contact them, call them, offer them 10% off, 15% off, just to try and get them to convert that product into a sale, so that interest into a sale. And actually, while digging around this problem and thinking about customer behavior, what we stumbled across is that a lot of customers now, and some of you might do this, a lot of customers now use the basket like a shopping list, and use the basket like a kind of list of wants and wishes, or simply they may just stick things in the basket now so that if they have to come back to it at a later stage, they can come back and complete the purchase. So I'm sitting as a business owner on one side where I'm going, actually, I need to offer these people with discounted prices because they're not converting. and they're not buying my products. The reality is that people are using the basket and using websites in a completely different way now. So what I would do then is offer them a discount to actually get them to convert. But all along, I didn't actually need to give them a discount, and I could have saved my pricing because it was just the way they are behaving and what they were doing. And what people have started to do now, we're using these baskets like a shopping list. So that's one example of, like, sometimes we can rush in and try and correct a problem, but actually the problem doesn't exist. Because what we need to do first of all is think about how we behave as customers and what we do as customers, and whether we're buying on gut instinct, whether we're buying on habit, whether we're researchers, and actually thinking about the customer behavior and why that's important to them, rather than just jumping on and offering discounts, lowering our prices when we actually don't need to. So think about how your typical target market customers are going to behave. Also, you need to consider, when setting your pricing strategy, your brand image and what the share of the market is you're going after. Out of those two issues, I think the brand image is even more important. So when you think about how you construct your brand, the key elements of setting your brand and what the brand is made up from, then there will be a direct relationship between the brand you put into the marketplace and the levels of pricing that you will put in place. So if you are going for a brand that is more upmarket, if you are going for a brand that is built more on customer service, offering bespoke solutions, then naturally with those sorts of products, customers will expect to see higher prices to warrant those services. So if it is sometimes just the brand in terms of the color, the language you use, the tone of voice that you use with your potential customers, establishing a brand, deciding on what your brand is going to be, is a key factor in setting your prices and making sure that the rates you're putting out into the marketplace are the same and do match up with the effort that's been put into brand, and the showcasing whether those products or services are high-end, run-of-the-mill market, or more kind of bargain basement type of approach. So think about your brand image and think about linking your brand image to your pricing as well. So the key elements of having a pricing strategy for any business, regardless of what you do, is understanding what your customers want, what your customers need, and how they behave. So it's not about just doing a calculation on the back of a fag packet. Excuse that expression, it's a horrible expression, but if you're from the UK, and my sort of age, you'll probably have heard that one before. So taking a bit of time to understand what your customers want, need, and how they behave, and then matching the value of your product or service to the right type of customers. So if you go out there and you look at a customer who's interested in being the cheapest, and the price is an important factor for them, then what you're probably not doing is you're not linking your branding, you're not linking the product and the value of the product to the right customers. So if they are bargain basement customers, the problem is not with your pricing, the problem is with the expectation of those types of customers. So you've got a kind of mismatch somewhere between the people you're targeting and then what's actually happening with your pricing and your brand, the back end. So do this work in advance and think about who it is you're trying to target, and think about what they want from your product. The other thing that you should be aware of, which is often a complicated thing, and you may or may not have heard about it before, is being aware of what your price elasticity is. So price elasticity basically means what is the relationship between your price and your level of demand and volume that you can sell. So sometimes with price elasticity, what we would do is that we would play around with our prices until we got to the position where we saw the balance. So an example of that is if you sold 100 products, at £10 each, then you would be having a revenue of £1,000. You could put your prices up to £15, and sell less, so you could possibly sell 950 of those products rather than 1,000. But because you're selling less, you might think, oh, my sales are down. But because actually you've increased your sale price by £5, you can sell less of the product and still end up with a higher revenue. If I was clever, I'd be able to tell you what that figure is. So I'm trying to rack my brains for it, but I should have picked easier numbers. But hopefully you get the point. It's not always about volume, it's about profit. and the amount of money that's coming in. So price elasticity is where you change your prices. Sometimes you will see a drop in demand, but it's measuring that overall revenue impact and whether your actual net result is better, even though you sold less of something. So putting your prices up is often the way to test that, and then monitoring it after that to see what the net impact is on your revenue. So those are all key things that you need to consider as part of your pricing strategy. What I wouldn't base your pricing strategy on if I was you, are first of all your confidence levels. So thinking if you are suffering from anything like imposter syndrome, if you have a problem shouting about what you do, if you have a problem with your sales skills, because a lot of people are not natural salespeople, then often what you can do is you can pick a price that you feel comfortable with. Excuse me. If you just pick a price that you are comfortable with, so say everyone in the marketplace for your services is charging £500 a day, and you're sitting there thinking, oh, I don't think I'm worth £500 a day, you know, how can I justify that? You know, I'm just not sure I'm confident enough to do that. Then what happens is that you will then probably set your prices maybe at £350 a day. And you think because you set your prices at £350 a day, everyone's going to come flocking to you. But what actually happens is when someone comes and looks at the market and they go, company A, £500, company B, £500, company C, which is your company, at £350, they start to get suspicious. Yeah. And they start to kind of think, why is that company so cheap? Is that too good to be true? So that's really important that you kind of get over that bit and get your confidence in check and make sure that you are doing it based on your knowledge and your expertise rather than anything else. Did I see someone stick up their hand there a minute ago? Yeah. If you've got any questions, you can just put them in chat or just hang around at the end and I'll hopefully be able to answer them. Doesn't allow me to see who's put up their hand. I just saw something flash up in front of me. So apologies for that. So that's the first thing in terms of your confidence levels. Secondly is thinking about being the cheapest to gain quick market share, unless you have a very, very good plan about how you can convert that into sustainable growth. We often call this, have the expression for it, which is a race to the bottom. So if you go into a marketplace and everyone else is charging £100 and you decide to charge 80 for whatever reason, happy days, probably initially you might get some business out of that. What happens is your competitions quite quickly see that their business is dropping, and then decide to match your price. And then you decide to go down to £75 because you want all that business back. They then look at it, they may have lower costs and lower overheads than you, and they then decide to go down to £65. We call this a race to the bottom because unless you're very careful, you and all your competitors end up selling something that is worth a lot more, but for a much lower price. So hence the race to the bottom. The only winner in that situation is the customer, because the customer ends up paying 20, 30, 40% less than your products were worth. So if you're going to do it, I get it. Some cases I would advise it, probably 5% of cases. In 95% of cases, be very, very careful if your plan is just to be the cheapest in the marketplace, unless, again, you know something that I don't. I wouldn't base your pricing, again, for the same point on discounting. If every 5 minutes, I saw a website the other day with one of my clients, and I went on the website, inside 10 seconds, it's offering me a 10% discount to do something. And I'm thinking, I haven't even looked at the website. I've not even searched for a product. I've not even put anything in my basket. Straight away, you're offering me 10% off, 15% off. What happens with that? Again, it's great for the consumer, and the consumer thinks then, or I certainly think, and I think a lot of other people will think like this. They'll think, right, I've been on the website 10 seconds. If they're offering me 10% already, then maybe there's more to be offered. So if it comes down to a negotiation, or it comes down to the basket and sticking something in there, people are then holding out and going, if I was offered 10% in the first 5 seconds, I'm going to hold out until I get 20, 30% off. So if you as a brand, and I've worked for one of them, Voyage Privé, if I said it was all about discounting, but we did that in a relatively clever way. if you are a general business, then just be very careful about always associating your pricing with discounting, because the expectations of the customer will grow in terms of the rate they can get it for, and actually you end up devaluing what your product is and devaluing the services you offer, which at some point in the future you may want to try and get your prices up, but you have built a business and a customer base on the word discounting, so they have attached a completely different price and value in their mind to your products than you did. So very difficult to recover from that. So be very, very cautious on that. Discounting can be a part of your arsenal in terms of gaining new customers, don't get me wrong, but just don't base everything on it and don't jump in with too big a discounts too soon. The next point is then thinking about you, and you may be very close to your product, and this kind of links into number one really, but slightly different. If you're looking at your business and deciding what the pricing should be, unless you are a mirror of your customer target. So if you are saying my business is trying to target customers just like me or people just like me, then your opinion is valid in terms of what you would pay for a service. If, which again is in the majority of cases, the people that you're trying to target are different from you, or coming at things from a different angle from you, or are in a different demographic or behavioral or psychological situation, then don't use yourself as the mirror. Don't think, well, what would I pay for that? Because if you're going after different customers, they will attribute value in many, many different ways to what you will. So just be careful about just using yourself as the mirror unless you are your target market. And there's a whole host of other webinars on target market and customer segments. If you're interested in marketing your business and not sure about marketing your business, then either come and watch one of our webinars, have a one-to-one, or stick customer segmentation into Google. Because unless you segment your target customers, you are going to spend a lot of time chasing a lot of people, and you will waste a huge amount of time. Having a base from which you segment your customers is incredibly, incredibly important. The last thing on, and this one is actually two more, I'll just bring both of them up. Yeah, the last two bits, one is cost that you have very little control over. So if you are looking at your products and you are basing it on a cost base, and there is potential that your cost base could change in terms of your suppliers, or your suppliers' costs can change. We've had plenty of experience of that over the last year or so with, prices of fuel, cost of living crisis, all these different things. If you are operating on slim margins and you are then basing it on costs that you can't control, be prepared for a lot of surprises. Because then if your supplier suddenly changes something to do with what they're doing, or increases their prices, then you may well find that hard to pass that price on. So if you have a product-based business and you have costs that you think might be liable to change in the future, then I would put in a little bit of a kind of buffer there to make sure that you have something in your prices that will kind of be able to accommodate that, rather than you changing your prices up and down every 5 minutes. The last one on that, if you are selling product via a third party, so if you are on Etsy, if you are not on the high street, eBay, Amazon, and probably 20 other different places, and please do not be surprised if you are factoring in the cost of your marketing. So if Etsy want to take 25-30% of your sale value as their fee, then just be aware that things around that could change. And you as a small business owner to go knocking on Etsy's door or eBay's door, getting them to change, you will have zero power. Happened recently with Etsy. It wasn't about the rates that they were charging. It was about how long they were keeping hold of the customer's money. So in these situations, these companies are clever. So if I went along and bought a product from one of you on here, I would be paying Etsy my money, and then it's Etsy's responsibility to give you that money within a set period of time. I don't know what it is at the moment, but let's say it's a week. Yeah, the change Etsy made a couple of months ago, unfortunately the press got hold of it and forced them to change it, is that for some produce sellers, they changed their payment terms from 7 days to 30 days, in some cases even more. Now, imagine if you have a small business and you are used to being paid by Etsy 7 days after a customer orders something, and all of a sudden you've got to wait the best part of an additional month for your money. That's going to have a massive impact on your cash flow and could potentially be a big risk to your business. So it's very difficult to control this. It's very difficult to predict this. But just when you're setting your prices, just consider that sometimes other people can have a huge impact on your pricing strategy as you move forward. Okay, so we're next going to look at different pricing models and just think about the different ones that we've got. I'm going to focus on two, so I won't talk too much about the other ones, but I'll just touch on them very, very briefly. So there are 5 main types of pricing models. So first of all is where you base everything you do on market forces. Yeah, so this is something where, for whatever reason, there is a swell of demand for something. Yeah, people are liking something, and actually you don't need to price yourself in line with the competition. You can price yourself in line with customers' expectations. I'll give you a good example of that. Yeah, a good example of that is this Prime soft drink that was launched, probably about a year or so ago now, by the YouTubers. They didn't look at the marketplace and say, right, how much does a bottle of Coke cost? How much does a bottle of Oasis cost? You know, and people were then put into ridiculous situations and did it. I don't get it, but they did it, where people were paying 10, 15, 20 pounds, if not more, for a bottle of squash. Yeah. Now, they managed to get away with that because of the marketing campaign around it, because of their influence in terms of how many people they can reach. Yeah. But there, in that situation, you are pricing on the market forces, not necessarily on other people's prices. Yeah. Competitive is looking at pretty much the opposite of that, where you are looking at what your competition are doing and mirroring your competition. In some big markets, that's called a cartel, where they sort of unofficially or officially fix the prices so everyone is paying roughly the same. But you may want to look at it and go, right, I just want to charge exactly the same as what my competition was charging. The problem with that is I think it forces you to be the same as your competition and doesn't force you to think about how you can improve and stand out from the competition and be a bit braver and hopefully charge more for your products and services because you are better than the rest. Number 3 is economies of scale. So again, I touched on this earlier on. So if you look at someone like Amazon, they will be buying products in bulk from places like China. And because they can afford to go out and put in big orders with companies, then it allows them to reduce their prices and sell a lot of something for small prices. So it's often to do with how much cash you've got to be able to buy in bulk, but it's also got to do with you know, whether you can have the supply chain in place that makes it cost effective for you to be cheap, because you can produce something very, very cost efficiently. Yeah, a lot of new businesses face this, where they might start selling a product and they might be getting some of their raw materials from the UK, and they then decide that in order to be able to sell cheaper or sell through wholesalers, they need to be able to go and buy their stock from a place like China. Yeah, the problem with that is it takes a long time to come through. So it will probably take 2 months if you place an order to get something from China on a boat. But because it's that much cheaper and you will be buying in bulk, if you have the cash and you have the time, that will allow you to set your pricing to sell volume, loads and loads and loads of things. Yeah, and so therefore you are a volume-based operator rather than a profit-based operator in that sense. Subscription based is also another pricing model which links into the last one, which is cost plus for services and products. So it may be, and this is a growing trend, where you may have a business where you are offering counseling, offering support, offering fitness, offering insight, whatever it may be. And rather than getting a customer to pay every time they want your service, that you are saying you will get access to my platform and my information in exchange for a subscription. So that can work very well, because what often happens is that people pay for subscriptions, then forget about them. Yeah, you are listening to someone that's had a gym membership for the last 2 years and not been, but stupidly still pays the £30 a month. I'm not quite sure what the psychology tells you about me with that, but for the gym, it's a right result. Yeah, because they're getting my £30 every month. I'm not going in. I haven't cancelled it. I don't know why, but I haven't cancelled it. Maybe because I know if I cancel it, I would never actually ever do any exercise. But for them, it's fantastic because if I was going there and only paying when I went there, then they would be out of pocket. But they're getting my £30 every month, and they're not having to do anything for it. I'm not saying that's why you would go into subscription-based charging, but it is obviously a benefit at times for people that want to do that. What we're going to focus on is the cost plus on the services and products, and I'm going to briefly talk you through the calculation and how they work and some things to look out for on that as we move forward. I'm presuming either the people on the call are selling a product or providing a service. Sometimes there are things that are a little bit in between. So the first one we're going to focus on is when it's looking at a service-based venture. So some of you may be providing the service, you're looking at the marketplace and you're thinking, how much should I charge for an hour? Or if you are building packages up that are going to take you X amount of hours to deliver, then you need to work out this hourly rate, whether that's set against the market or set against your own worth, or maybe sometimes just set about what target you want to have for the business, and whether it is a growth business or what we call a lifestyle business, where you want to get the balance between the other things in your life and running a business. So the calculation that most people would take here is you would look at the annual target for your business. You would divide it by the total number of hours that you think you're going to be working, and that would then give you an hourly rate. Yeah, the key issue that we need to think about there is the relationship between hours worked and billable hours. And I'll just run through a calculation here because I see a lot of people making this mistake. Yeah, so this is the plain and simple example. So if I'm starting a business tomorrow and it's a lifestyle business, and I'm thinking to myself, I would be quite happy in my first year of operation providing consultancy to people to bring in an income of £40,000. Not bad for my first year. So I take my target of £40,000 and I then work out how many hours I'm going to be working. Yeah, and I go to the extreme. I say probably going to be working 8 hours a day. Yeah, I'm going to be working 5 days a week. I don't really want to work weekends because I've got kids to look after. I've got football to watch, or I've got other things to do. Yeah, but pretty much I'm quite happy working every single week along that pattern. So you take 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year, and that gives you a figure of 2,080 hours that you're going to work out that you're going to spend working on your business. The simple calculation then is dividing 40,000 by 2,080, and that gives you an hourly rate figure of £19.23. So some people would look at that and then go, based on the example, right, my hourly rate is going to be £20. But there's a problem. And this is where the element of billable hours comes in. If you are fortunate enough to be spending 8 hours a day, 5 days a week in your business, many of you listening in here now will end up probably working a lot more than that. The important thing is to recognize about how many of your hours in your business will you actually be earning money. Because if you look at your working week, and even if we assume the same similar sort of figures for this, if you are working 8 hours a day, during that day, you're going to be doing some marketing, you're going to be doing some paperwork, you'll probably be maybe sorting out a printer that's broken, going to the shop to buy yourself some more pens, contacting your supplier about latest deals, about delivery issues, whatever. Actually, when you look at it on a service-based venture, you're probably going to spend at least half of your time doing stuff to support your business. And the rest of the time is then when you're actually earning money from clients. So this is what we call billable hours. So if you are working a 40-hour week and you are managing to have 20 hours of your week where you are billing your customers for that, then you are doing well. Yeah. Anywhere between 20 and 25 hours a week that you are billing, you are doing incredibly well. So if we plug those figures in and assume that actually we're going to be doing 20 hours in that situation, like I've just said, billable hours. So we have the same target of £40,000 a year, but now we're saying actually the billable hours is only going to be 4 hours a day. Yeah, that's going to be across 5 days a week. And, you know, I want to give myself a break. I'm going to have some time off. I might be sick. Just going to cut myself some slack there. So that's only going to be across 48 weeks of the year. So what that actually does is give you a total hours, as you can see on screen, of 960. And if you do that calculation, the calculation of your hourly rate is actually closer to £42. So I see so many people make the mistake of having this as their hourly rate. They're busy all the time with their business. They're busy doing something, servicing customers, and can't realize why they're not earning enough money from their business. So if this is your sort of business, this one below here is the calculation you use to come up with this hourly rate. Then check it against what the market forces are saying. Yeah. So just be realistic, be cautious, yeah, and take care of the obvious elements in terms of the time that you will spend wasting, you know, building a website, correcting the website, and all these different things. Yeah. So hopefully for some of you that may help in terms of where you've just got to be a little bit more realistic to set yourself up in a better way. The next one is about product base. So if you are selling a product and selling it for a certain rate, about how we come up with that pricing. You know, there's a lot of complicated formulas, as I put on the screen with this, that can talk about net profit, gross profit, all these different things. I think it's quite a simple calculation. Yeah. And I think certainly if you're at the early stage of your business, you need to think about keeping it simple, but also trying to mitigate with some risks. What you certainly must understand is the difference between markup and margin in terms of calculating your price. And I'll just explain a little bit about what those things are. So let's say we are selling a product. Let's say we are selling a water bottle. Yeah. And for that water bottle, we have calculated that in order to buy it from the manufacturers, build it ourselves, get it delivered, put it in a nice box, it's going to cost us £10 to have that raw product sitting there in my office that's ready to be sold to a customer. In terms of me then looking at what price I'm going to sell it to that customer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a markup to that product to increase it. So if my markup was 50%, and the markup will vary depending on the sector you're in, and there's some guidelines I can give on that offline. Yeah. But if you're saying the market, yeah, is trading about 50%, yeah, then you are going to apply a 50% markup to your £10. So if you put in place a 50% markup to your product that costs you £10, the sale price of your product will be £15. And out of that £15, £5 is coming to you as gross profit, and £10 is going to cover the costs of getting this product in a position to sell. That is a markup. A margin is something different. Yeah. And often people get confused between the two. Yeah. So if it's a markup, yeah, then we're talking about what you add to the cost price to get your sale price. The margin is something different. In this situation, to work out your margin, in fact, I'll just go to the next slide because there's an example here that might be useful. Yeah. So on this basis, yeah, we're talking about a cost of a product of £50. Yeah. So ignore my £10. If we've got a product that's going to cost us £50 to produce, be in a fit state to sell to a customer, we would then, in this example, be adding a markup of 40%. So you would times £50 by 1.4, so 40%. That then gives you a sale price of £70. In order to calculate your margin, yeah, so what you're earning percentage-wise on each product you sell, what you're going to do is take the profit amount, the gross profit amount, so in this case that is £20, and divide that by the end sale price, in this case is £70. So if you divide 20 by 70 and then times it by 100 to get a percentage, in this example, your markup is 40%, but your margin would actually be 28.6%. the percentage of money you're making on the sale of that. So just be careful if you've not done this sort of stuff before. If you get asked questions by your accountant or get asked questions if you're going for funding or just a bit confused about that, just be clear on the markup is what you add to the cost to get your sale price, and the margin is the calculation of what the gross profit is on a percentage basis. The rule of thumb, obviously, with this, which you can see on the next slide, and even from that example, is the markup is always the higher figure. Yeah. So if you want to achieve a margin of 23%, then you would mark up something by 30%. If you wanted to achieve a 50% margin, then you would mark up something by 100%. So look at it, see what the marketplace are doing, see what you want to be doing in terms of whether your product is better or not. Yeah, this bottle was actually a good example. It's one of those, I can't remember the name of it, chilies. Yeah, I've had many water bottles in the past that I've spent £6-7 on. I think this was 20 odd pounds. Yeah, well worth it. Much more expensive because it's a higher quality product. Yeah, so the margins I'm going to be operating on are higher, and I'm not worried about competing with a plastic water bottle that may be sitting in a kind of low end type shop. So the relationship between markup and margin, very important. So if you are pricing on a product, consider that. Again, as I've said many times, if you are unclear on what you should be doing with your pricing, then just drop me a line, and I will help you and walk you through it again, and even offer you additional support on those areas as well. So if you are going to do cost pricing on the product base, understand the true cost of your products and associated cost, study the pricing trends or levels in your market. Yeah, so see what the competitions are doing, but don't just follow. Look at whether your product is better or worse. Be clear on why your product and its placements, so going back to the 5 Ps, is different, because if you're just going to do the same as everyone else, then that's risky in terms of a business approach. Decide on your markup figure for your product, which may be based on your market research. Hopefully, if you are just starting your journey, you have put a fair amount of time into your market research, which is a lot easier to do now than it was maybe 20 years ago before Google. So you can look at what other people are doing, what other people are saying, but you can decide on your cost base and your infrastructure to get that figure right. Yeah. When you've done that, review sales, review conversions, and review the market share. And part of that is then testing the price elasticity that I mentioned before. Yeah. And actually trying to avoid the discounting trap, so that all you're doing is giving customers money off. Yeah. If I again had to put a stake in the ground, I would say probably 80% of the early start companies I work with, their prices could be put up by 20% overnight, and it would have no impact on their business whatsoever. Or when I say no impact, it would have no negative impact. Yeah, you'd actually sell the same, be getting 20% more revenue, because I think people don't understand it enough. People undervalue themselves, and people are thinking that we're in a discounted market all the time, which depends on which sector you're in. So point 5 there, I think is important to look at that there. I have so many people that come to me and say, I'm redoing my website because my website's not working. And I say to them, how do you know your website's not working? And they say, well, I don't like that image. I don't like that video. My logo doesn't look great. I don't think it's this and whatever. The first thing we need to do in all of these conversations, if you are trading, is look at the figures. Look at your sales, look at your conversions, look at your market share if it's available. If you have a website, your best friend every single day or every single week should be Google Analytics or whatever the latest version of it is. Yeah, don't make decisions based on emotion. Don't make decisions on what your best friend has told you. Make as many decisions as you can on your business and on pricing based on fact. Yeah, and then you will be in a much better position to move forward. I've talked a lot about discounting and price versus value. I'm not going to talk about it, a great deal more, because I think hopefully it should be obvious about what I'm saying so far. Yeah, unless you are a very specific case, use discounting as a tool, but don't use discounting as the go-to for everything. So don't be looking at it and going, every time I'm going to be the cheapest, I need to offer people an incentive to book something. Yes, you can use it tactically, But if you actually end up in a situation where all you do is offer discount, 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 yeah, then people are waiting for more. It devalues your brand, and it's very difficult to get back up to that position where your product has the right value that you need. And certainly when you come out the first 6 months or a year of your business where you think, oh, I'll sell it cheap early to get some traction, trying to get those customers to pay more for your product is very, very difficult, because you've set the expectation, you've set the connection with those. So as I said before, if you are struggling on pricing or you are struggling on any other part of your business, I am going to put my email address into the chat bar here. Please feel free to drop me a line. As I said before, all of our advice will be as honest as possible, and it's free. And I can provide you any mentoring services or one-to-one support, or point you in the right direction of anything that you need in the future. That's the kind of end of the presentation now. Hopefully I've hit it bang on time for 12 o'clock. Yes, I have. If any of you want to hang around and ask me any questions, if you'd rather do that than email me, then I will hang around here for 5 minutes. If you are happy, I know that's a strong word, then please feel free to leave, and hopefully we'll see you again at another webinar in the future. Thank you very much.